Good morning. I hope everyone's having a fantastic week. I believe I'm live, or had a fantastic weekend and are preparing to have a fantastic week. That's more what I meant. All right. I think I'm 2 minutes early, 1 minute early, 1 minute. We'll give everybody just a second to join. We have some interesting things to go over. All right, for all of those of you who are new, we just cover the news. As software engineers, what's interesting to us? Now, I do a lot of stuff in the cloud myself, and so I do cover quite a bit of cloud news, but I also cover security and then some just general software engineering news as well, blog articles and the likes and things like that. I also sometimes, although not recently, do some open source projects at the end. So join the Discord channel, and if you have an open source project you'd like to have featured, let me know, and I'll give it a check and see if it looks interesting. And then usually I build up a couple of complementary open source projects, and we talk about them. I don't have any for today, but I do have quite a bit of cloud news and quite a bit on the security. So let's jump into it. One of these is one that was, or this one here. There was a big data breach. So we can talk about that. The Revolt data breach here. And I know that there was some in the Discord. There was some. Let's see. I'm looking really quickly here. There was definitely a Twitter account that was also talking about this recently. But basically, there is over 50,000 customers. So yeah. Now, it did say that their card details were hashed. I'm not sure I would say and therefore protected. It probably more means like they're buying you some time. So for most encryption and most things like that, it's not about whether you can get through the encryption. You can. If you have the ability to brute force something, so like when you're trying to like guess a password online, usually the account will get locked, and that's how we stop brute forcing something. But when the data is breached and contained on a hard drive, what happens is you can brute force it, and you can set a couple GPUs on it, and it really doesn't take that long. It might take you 2 months, but what does that matter if it's your card details? That's the general consensus is that it's usually encryption delays how soon somebody can get that information. So, anyways, pretty bad. It says it might have affected over 500 or 50,000. I would guess more. Generally, when people release this information, I think that they try to err on as few as possible that they have to say legally. So yeah. And I bring this up just to say security is really important. I know that we all, or a lot of us, make applications that people use, and it's really on us to make sure that they're secure for the people that trust us with their data. Uber hacker has also hacked Rockstar Games. I know that they released the GTA 6 videos. I saw that Rockstar kind of owned that pretty well, so I was kind of happy with that. Microsoft researchers are tracking on ongoing, wide-ranging click fraud campaign. So basically, this is a WebKit Chrome hack. People, please be careful with what Chrome plugins you install. They definitely are actually monetizing you through ads, which is weird. But that's exactly what they're doing. So yeah, careful about that. LastPass. A lot of people use them to manage their passwords. It had internal systems for several days. Now, I believe that LastPass made the statement that they don't know of anything that was actually obtained from them. It looks like the threat actor was actually trying to modify the source code, and I was looking into several articles on it, and it looked like I don't know if they put like a freeze on their code as they're investigating, but it didn't look like they got access to the production system. So there was no production system access. It was just to their source code and things like that. And they were like trying to make modifications to the source code to add vulnerabilities. But as far as I could see, they were pretty secure on what the threat actor had actually done. Wonder if mining ads is more efficient than mining Bitcoin. I would have to guess that it is. Well, I guess it depends on what you mean by efficient. So when you're talking about efficient, are you meaning like you make more money faster? Or are you talking about efficient as like you use less CPU? I assume that you use less CPU just by default. As far as making money, I don't know on that one. All right, and here's what everybody really is here for. There was a lot of data exploits. Uber last week, that was the one that I missed last week. I should have gotten that one, but Uber and their data breach last week. A 15-year-old vulnerability. All right, so this is pretty fantastic. This is the CVE for it. If you're wanting to look it up, this has a little bit higher level English. Like the CVEs are always great, except like they can be rough to read. But this is a 15-year-old bug in Python, and basically has made a lot of Python things vulnerable. So you need to be wondering, if you use Python, you need to be checking to see if you use this. All right, so if we're an attacker to take advantage of this vulnerability, they need to add ... with the separator for the operating system into the file name to escape the directory the file is supposed to be extracted to. That's all they have to do. This is like the easiest exploit for even script kiddies. Super easy. Anyways, it's patched, so update your Python. Do it quick. All right. So Morgan Stanley was, you know what? Banks are the most painful thing to work with. Every company I've been with, banks are the most painful. They hold their third parties to such high standards. This brought joy to my heart, even though it was at the expense of safeguarding personal information of people, so it doesn't really bring joy to my heart. But Morgan Stanley, to pay $35 million for extensive failures to safeguard personal information of millions of customers. Now, the true grievance here is they didn't do encryption at rest. That was their grievance. One of the most simple, well-known, easy things to do. Everybody does encryption at rest. It's like the easiest thing to turn on for your data. They completely failed to implement encryption at rest, and this goes back as far as 2015. So yeah, shame on you, Morgan Stanley. We haven't even gotten to the cryptocurrency stuff. We'll get to that. I actually have shied away from talking about the Ethereum merge because I don't want my channel to become that. I have if you guys haven't watched it, I have a video on how you use crypto every single day as a developer. It was meant to be clickbait. I'm obviously horrible at clickbait because I think the technology that underlines cryptocurrencies is actually really cool and can solve some really unique problems and has been solving unique problems before 2009. And I think that the cryptocurrency craze has actually really gotten people off kilter of what it can do and how it can help people. So like I'm really annoyed on one side, like really annoyed. And the other side is like I don't really want to cover news of something that I think like the majority of people are using to scam people. But I do have some news on that in here. We haven't gotten to that quite yet. But attach me, the OCI vulnerability allows unauthorized access to customers' cloud storage volume. This is a massive breach in multi-tenancy in Oracle Cloud. So any of you that have written a multi-tenant app probably know how hard it is to do right and how much work that goes into it. This I found to be staggering. Now, the vulnerability was fixed within hours of Oracle. They notified Oracle first when they found it. So there's nothing that you need to do. So this is good. And you also can't go and test it out because I wanted to go test it out. But basically what happened was if you knew the unique name of their storage, you could access it. That was effectively it. If you were in the Oracle Cloud, and I refuse to call it OCI, if you want to know why, we can talk about that at the end, just ask. But if you were in Oracle Cloud and you knew its name, you could access their storage. Now, it was a unique name, but like you could just guess too. So all you had to do was spin up a VM in Oracle's cloud. Pretty bad multi-tenancy breach. Right, Jabril, you're exactly right. Oracle Cloud. Okay, 1 second. Oracle Cloud, or Oracle, is part of the Open Containers Initiative, or OCI, and they've been part of the OCI for well before they had the Oracle Cloud. And then they come along as like a platinum member of the OCI and name their cloud OCI. I'm sorry. Just, you know, it's fine. It's fine. It's not fine. It's not fine. I'm moving on. You guys are baiting me. You guys know my sensitive subjects. I'm moving on. All right. New hacking group. Metador is lurking in ISP networks for months. So this was a group that has been hacking some internet service providers for about 2 years. So this is specifically targeting the Middle East and Africa. And it looks to be long term. Like I said, it's been like 2 years. You can go on and read more about it yourself. Yeah, so that's happening. Here's my Ethereum update. Again, we're not going to talk about the merge or different consensus mechanisms. I actually do want to cover consensus mechanisms. I want to do a real video on that myself. But this was interesting. There was a vulnerability, a huge vulnerability, and he got a $400 ETH payout, which I guess is like $800,000 USD. Pretty good payout. He wanted the max payout of $2 million, but Basically, he found a way he could siphon funds off. So that was no good. It has been fixed, but yeah. Go for us, the US or the EU. Yeah, I don't know why they're going after Africa. If you read in that article, it looked like it could be like some politically backed or some faction like that. So I don't know. It could have been it could be a group in Africa that wants to work to control some stuff in Africa. There was some speculation on that as well throughout that, but again, I would say speculation, and I don't really cover that because I haven't dug into it enough myself to really give you guys a clear idea. A lot of what I do is just cover a wide breadth of stuff. I do dig into some stuff and try to at least validate them to the best of my abilities. I'm not an investigative journalist by any means. All right. So yeah, this guy found a vulnerability where they could siphon off. So basically, if you're not aware, I'm gonna make this really simple. But as a layer 2 optimistic rollup blockchain solution for Ethereum, basically what this does is it groups up batches. So Ethereum, even after the merge, is still kind of expensive to make a network exchange on. And so what people do is they use these roll-up things to create a whole batch of things, so they can share the fee, the Ethereum fee, across all of them. This is pretty standard and happens a lot across a lot of them. And so it was a issue in that basically would allow them to siphon off anybody that was using that roll up to to siphon off their Ethereum, basically. Now, what really gets me frustrated with cryptocurrencies and why I don't cover them a lot is a lot of the news around cryptocurrency would be like, Tornado Cash left a void. Time will tell what fills it. Do you know what void cryptocurrency or Tornado Cash left? Money laundering. That's the void. If you're really going to want to support and push cryptocurrencies, you have to start understanding that supporting and pushing these types of things is actually hurting your cause. If you're saying that Tornado Cash left a void, the only service that it provided was money laundering. That's the only service. You can't point to anything else it did than money laundering. It was like what it stated its job purpose was on its webpage. You're hurting yourself, people. You're hurting yourselves. This type of statement. All right. Anyways, I actually like blockchain technology. I think that it's actually really useful, and I have some plans to use it myself. Minus this. This is the problem I struggle with. Let's move on to cloud news, because I struggle much less with that and get much less ranty with it. And I know that you guys are here for the news, not my rants. So we have a up and coming cloud that gets a little bit of spotlight. It's been on here before, not too big of news. I'm gonna save them for last though. We're gonna go over the lame stuff this morning first. So AWS Route 53 announces support for DNS resource record set permissions. So yeah, this is going to allow you to identify the AWS identity and access management, create, edit, delete profiles for individual groups of DNS records within Route 53. So originally it was kind of you had access to Route 53 or not. It was all of Route 53. But now it's allowing you, this is actually a really big thing. This is why I put it first, this allows larger corporations. So for me at my company, I'm in charge of the cloud team. And doing so, I could have access to the cloud team's DNS instead of all of the DNS records in Route 53. This makes tons of sense, and yeah, I think that this is huge. I really do. I say that about at least one thing, that it's huge every single week. But I really do think that this is a really much needed improvement. So yeah. Local clusters for Amazon EKS on Outposts. That is a mouthful. So they're excited to announce the general availability of local clusters for Amazon Elastic Kubernetes service on Outposts. So basically, what this is doing is allowing you to run EKS on premise. So if you want to know what Outposts are, that's like your data center. That's what they're talking about. So you can now run your entire EKS cluster locally on Outposts. This is kind of cool, especially if you're one of the shops that fully bought into EKS and you're kind of locked into that ecosystem. This can make that easier if you're wanting to do, either your own data center for more availability, or if you're wanting to do like some edge stuff yourself as well. So pretty cool. And the last thing for EKS was Amazon SNS now supports message signatures based on SHA-256. It was originally only SHA-1, and SHA-256 is a market improvement. So, awesome. Let's move on to GCP. GCP had actually kind of a few things, although they cheated. How did they cheat? Cloud Dataflow PerfKit Benchmarker has expanded support for benchmarking on your Dataflow pipelines. 1 second, we'll scroll down. You see I'm scrolling down. Cloud Dataflow PerfKit Benchmarker has expanded support for benchmarking on your own Dataflow pipelines. I don't know if they thought that I wouldn't actually read each one of these to understand for you guys whether it was important or not, but I did, and they definitely double dipped here. So don't trust Google to only list them each thing once. All right. So before that, I don't actually, I haven't actually used this, but I mean, anything that can help you with capacity planning, regression testing, and the total cost of ownership, that's what TCO generally stands for, is really, really important. Understanding how much something is actually costing you is really important. And we'll actually get into that a little bit later on. I have a little bit of news around S3, and understanding your total cost of ownership with S3 can actually be difficult. And that's where a new product has kind of tried to step in. So, I think that this is really, really important and something that's really good to see coming to GCP. Cloud Deploy, again, if you're talking in terms of AWS, it's like their CloudFormation brings support to verify your deployment, kind of important. Sorry, my eye. The allergies right now are kind of rough where I live. All right, Cloud Load Balancing now supports cross-project service, which is nice. The data stream now supports direct replication into BigQuery. We did talk about this earlier as they had announced it, but it's now in public preview, which means just about anybody can go and test it out. So if you were one of the people that found that interesting and possibly useful, I would definitely go and check this out. Let's see. The last thing that I saw here. Oh, yes. GCP got their own Karen, just in case. I found that hilarious. And I'm sorry, this person's probably the best person out there. Probably. I don't know. Don't know them, so don't take this as me saying, I found it funny. All right. What's new with Google's unified open and intelligent data cloud? This actually goes more in detail on some of the things that you saw here. So you saw the data stream stuff here. This actually goes and breaks it down. So I'm actually going to leave this in the links because I wish that they had put it in here, but I actually had to go hunting for it. But it explains it all a little bit better and how it integrates, and has some nice videos for you to watch. So I would watch this if those things were interesting to you. They're explained much better there. And the last thing, which wasn't in their news, which baffles my mind, Google Cloud Firewall introduces network firewall policies, IAM governed tags, and more. So this is all in the security thing, which is a huge deal, and allows you to do better firewall policies and govern tags with IAM policies. So that's pretty nice. So their cloud firewall can help you more easily achieve a zero trust network. Now, this is fake news. This is fake news right here. 1 second. Help you more easily achieve a zero trust network. Now, the key word here is posture. Posture. They're very good with their wording here, because what happens is it's almost impossible to have a zero trust network. That's just, you strive for a zero trust network. You do things to implement a zero trust, and you try to give things as little trust as possible. In the end, the actual goal is maybe impossible. I think Cloudflare is one of the best companies at doing it. But yeah, in the end, everything has to have some amount of trust. Do you use a layer 7 application and load balancer in AWS? Because they'll say, just trust us. But there's no way to actually have zero trust, because you actually have to trust that load balancer. And there's no way around it. You literally just have to trust it. And now, don't get me wrong, I think AWS has a legitimate say of saying that you can trust it, but you have to, is my point. Can't be zero trust. Anyways, this word right here, posture, key word. They're good at that. All right. Anyways, also, there's nothing easy about a zero trust network. Let me tell you, there's nothing easy about zero trust. It's work. I think, although I would say that zero trust is work, I think when you look at all the breaches, it's worth it. It's worth the work. All right, public preview. Encryption scopes on hierarchical namespaces enabled storage accounts. This seemed important. I don't use Azure. So I know that my coverage of Azure is kind of crappy compared to the other two clouds. But encryption scopes introduce the option to provision multiple encryption keys in a storage account with hierarchical namespaces. So basically, it allows you to have multiple encryption keys. I think this could be useful for multiple teams inside of a company. So kind of what I call trusted multi-tenancy, and some things like that. I don't know if this is good enough for untrusted multi-tenancy, where you're providing multi-tenancy to somebody else. I don't know well enough this product, but yeah, that's what it looks like. When I read this, that's what I'm seeing. You can use that in a more multi-tenant way. Improvements to the Azure Web Application Firewall, the Waff. You'll hear me talk a lot about WAFs. Just here, we were talking about their Waff. I think we were talking about their Waff. 1 second. I just jerked everybody around. They made improvements to their Waff, didn't they? That was one of their things. I know that it was. Oh, yes. There we go. The cloud firewall. It was this one. Okay. Yeah, so this cloud firewall is their Waff. That's what it is. So AWS also has a Waff, and Cloudflare basically is one big Waff. These things are this is the thing that helps you protect a DDoS and things like that. Anyways, sorry. They made theirs better. I already think that Azure's Waff is one of the better ones. Again, I don't use it, but the things I read about it, it looks to be one of the more fully featured. Not up to Cloudflare standards, but probably giving GCP a run for its money. And a Waff is one of the weaker. I think AWS's Waff is fine. It's good. It's fine. I think it's one of the weaker things. If you had to ask, not any reason not to use it, but Azure had a bunch of things being retired in 2025, so I'll remind you again in 2025. Support for Postgres version 11 is end of life in 2014. All right, or 2024, not 14. And that brings us to our cloud runner-up. You guys know that I've talked about them a lot. Cloudflare. They're doing a lot. They're doing a lot. We're talking about WAFs, and if you want a free WAF for whatever reason, Cloudflare has a WAF for you that will protect anything, even your bare metal. I'm doing the null cloud, and I'm protecting it with Cloudflare. And they give it to me for free because they're fantastic like that. No, it's pretty limited in its free account, but that's fine. I'm happy with that. They hide my IP address. You'll see a video about that later on. This brings WAF to the enterprise. So if you're an enterprise customer and you wanted to say that this is a base WAF, every single one of my applications or whatnot needs to have this basic WAF, it allows you to do that at an organization level. So this is a pretty big deal for the, you don't have to do it individually. So you're able to manage this at an enterprise level. It's a pretty cool feature. I like it. The next thing, and I remember that total cost of ownership and S3 comment that I made. It's coming up. It's coming up right now. R2, I announced it a couple months ago as being released, is now generally available. And this is where total cost of ownership gets kind of interesting. I think R2 is fantastic. I try to be fairly unbiased, and I try to be at least open with my biases when I know that I have them. And I know that I have a small bias around Cloudflare. I get that. But I think that this is pretty cool. Now, if you look at Amazon S3, the one thing I can tell you, Amazon S3 has 11 nines of availability. 11 nines of availability. That means that it can go down for a microsecond or something like that. It's ridiculous. Not 11 nines is ridiculous. 4 nines of availability is hard to get. 11 is ridiculous. All right, so I don't know what their availability is here, so I can't comment on that. But R2 is S3 compatible block storage for Cloudflare. But they, in my opinion, are doing the pricing right. If you actually get into AWS pricing here, you'll click on pricing and you'll scroll down and you're like, oh, it's, over 500 terabytes, it's, 20 cents or 21 cents or 2.1 cents per gigabyte. Not bad. That's what it is. Cool. But that is not all. There are all these tabs. So every request, whether it's a put, copy, post, or list, get, select, and all of those, lifecycle transaction, data retrieval, it depends on where you are. Those have a cost. Data transfer in and out of the AWS cloud has a cost. So this is data transfer out of AWS cloud, egress. This is data cost between regions. There is managing analytics and replication. If you're actually wanting to get that 11 nines of availability, you have to do replication. And so there is, the total cost is a little bit confusing, and you can go into the pricing calculator and see all the different options just for storing some data. That's where R2 tries to make it right. Now, it's a little bit more expensive straight up. It's a little cheaper straight up. Storage is priced at only 1.5 cents per gigabyte. And Class A operations, those are the puts and writes and lists. And Class B operations are actually a little cheaper themselves. These go by million. whereas AWS goes, if you're looking here, goes by per 1,000. So these look cheaper, but they're not actually cheaper. This is actually cheaper as a whole. They've actually just made it cheaper. So this is almost half the price per gigabyte per month, and this is all you're getting charged for. It's much more upfront. R2 will never charge for egress. So I think that this is fantastic. If they can make money selling S3 compatible storage this way, I think this is huge. Kudos to them. Why I bring up total cost of ownership is that the TCO on this is easier to understand. It's easier to understand what it's going to cost you. It's going to be easier to make projections. I think clear, easy billing in the cloud is something we should be striving for. All right. If you guys are interested in Cloudflare, they have not sponsored anything, by the way, just so you know. I don't know if I said that or not, but I should have. Nothing on this stream has been sponsored. I just like Cloudflare. And I try to point you guys to stuff that I find interesting. Anyways, they're interesting is they have supported, they're really going into the serverless. And so if you want to try Cloudflare out, they have a really cool to-do app, serverless all the way. So from the UI to the backend, all serverless. Kind of interesting. And that's it for the cloud news. We're going to get into some Linux news, software engineering news as a whole. And then that will be it for us. So we have probably about another 15 minutes. I have to ask you, if you made it this far, please go ahead and hit that like button. If you're enjoying this, make sure to leave a comment. Let people know that you like it. That'd be great. Let's jump into, let's get into some, well, actually, I have one piece of, this isn't really Kubernetes news, but talking about R2 and S3 storage, there is a project called Min.io. If you don't know what it is, it's an open source project that provides AWS S3 compliant block storage for Kubernetes. I guess it doesn't even need Kubernetes. It could be on VMs if you like. I've used it a lot. I've used the container a lot in Kubernetes, and it is getting a ton of pools. It's averaging 1 million a day, I believe they said. Yeah, just shy of 1 million pulls per day. That's a lot of pulls. All right. That being said, it's a fantastic project, even if you don't use Min.io in production, because this can provide a S3 compatible on like a testing or a dev box. It's pretty powerful. Pretty powerful. All right. Systemd support lands in WSL. I'm super excited about this because I do a lot of educational stuff, and sometimes people have just a Windows machine. And this allows my Linux stuff to also reach people that have a Windows machine. And like for that, I'm super excited about that. They don't have to worry about setting up a VM or doing anything weird like that. And for the longest of time, Systemd was never supported. So there was things that they couldn't do in WSL because it didn't have Systemd. So, Ubuntu here is going to talk about Snap or things like that. But there's a lot more than just Snap being able to run in WSL. So this is Microsoft's Systemd support is now available in WSL. I'm super excited about this because now people can actually follow along. You can use microcates. You can use all the same tools that I do and follow along with my education. So I'm super excited about this just because this brings a whole nother group of people that I can try to help, and we can work together on stuff. Also, it means like if you are stuck on Windows and pull up WSL, it's a little bit more fully featured. It's fantastic. Now, I know that Russell, if you're still on, you and I had an argument about whether Rust was supported well enough. And we both agreed that, really, for a language to survive, it needs a large company that's pushing and driving it. And I think you and I both agreed that Mozilla maybe wasn't large enough of a player to really ensure that Rust survived. I do believe Rust will survive. I almost started singing a song. So over last week, the Azure CTO said basically C and C++ languages shouldn't be used for new projects. Shouldn't be used. And he supports Rust. Now, this article says is now being used within Android open source project. That is true. It's being used at Meta. That is true. At Amazon Web Services, obviously true. Stuff like EKS and BottleRocket are all predicated on Rust. For parts of Windows and Azure, those are true. In the Linux kernel, that's a stretch of the truth. So in the next release, there will be a minute amount of Rust code, very small, but it's not released yet. So I think that this is kind of a stretch. In a couple months, the Linux kernel will have some Rust. I think that this is, at least for me, this is good enough to make a bet on. Like, it's obviously nothing is set in stone. There is no guarantee that, any of these companies will continue using it, but I think that this has a pretty high probability that you see it being driven forward. I actually wanted to look up, I didn't get the chance to before this stream, but I wanted to look up the stats for who's contributing to the code base, because I know it's been dominated by Mozilla, but it has been opening up and a community has been forming around it. And I actually wanted to see if I could find, I didn't find any really easily stats about what company was contributing how much. But I'm sure that it's out there. I'm sure that they're tracking it. So that's one thing that I wanted to do, because that would also help. Because really, I think like it doesn't matter if they're using it. I really want to see, Microsoft, Meta, Azure, AWS start to own helping develop it. A lot of people would be edgy about, I don't want them involved in my open source project. But if they're investing that time, that engineering time, that's a lot of money. Like, people don't realize it, but if like you are supporting engineers, spending their time, good engineers, AWS and Azure hire good engineers, to expensive engineers, to invest their time in making the language better. That's fantastic. That is super fantastic. So anyways, I think Rust has a high probability of succeeding. I think but yeah, obviously, it's not that. Yeah, I don't know how big it is in Ada. I don't know officially that I can say anything about how big it is at Amazon. Let me put it that way. I cannot say anything about how big it is at Amazon, but I believe it's pretty well used in Amazon. Meta, a dying company. Yeah, I don't know. Microsoft, I do agree that Microsoft is the real deal. Them accepting it, they have a lot of experience writing C++. They have a lot of experience doing a lot of stuff. Getting their support, I think, is probably the biggest thing that could have happened to Rust. Yeah. So I saw this article, How to Outperform a 10x Developer. I disagree with this. I bring up articles that I disagree with. They say first awareness, then productivity. The reason I disagree is what I've seen out of my 10x engineers, and I don't really adhere to this, and you're about to learn, is that a 10x developer is one that empowers the rest of the team. It's the person that makes the entire team function better. It's that person that when they're in the team, that team produces 10 times more. And there are people like that. There are people who enter a team and just make the entire output of the team better. Those are the people that I'm looking for. And it doesn't have necessarily anything to do with their ability. Now, obviously, they're good engineers. They're hard workers, and they're people who have that are good standalone. Don't get me wrong. But when I ever think of this mythical 10x developer, it's those people that you put in a team and that you can kind of trust to walk away from. That their ability in that team is just going to make it's going to bring the team up. Those are the real 10x developers. So this article is fine. They talk about, I think it's a great thing about how to focus on being a little bit better of an engineer yourself. It's kind of a long read. I think it's worth it though, because it made me think about these things, which I really liked. So yeah. So Microsoft, so Rust should be a primary language in the next Visual Studio. I would love to see that. Now, I would love to see Visual Studio support not Windows, because I don't develop on Windows. But if I can tell you one thing, Visual Studio is an amazing tool. An amazing tool. I'm over here in like Visual Studio Code and Vim busting out my code, and then I'm like debugging with some command line tools. And then my friend who works at Microsoft has like Visual Studio up, and he's like, no, look at this. This gave me like every registry in the processor and what went wrong. And I was like, holy crap, that is amazing. So I would love to see real Rust support, and not this crappy Microsoft.NET. Like, if they come out with Rust.NET, I will lose something. I will absolutely lose something if they come out with Rust.NET that is supported in Visual Studio. I will absolutely lose something. They better not do that, Microsoft. You would hurt my heart. You would hurt my heart. Don't do it to me. That being said, Microsoft came out and said it's wrong for managers to spy on remote employees. Mouse clicks and keystrokes, that's a measuring heart or heat rather than outcome. It's good to see somebody actually come out and state this. So the CEO, I still don't know how to pronounce his name. I feel bad for the dude. I think that he's done great work at Microsoft. Not perfect, but I think he's done pretty good work. It does more harm than good, is what he comes out and says. It causes paranoia among your workers, which actually causes them to be less productive because they're worried about this heat productivity tracking, which is stupid. And, it's always been hard, the productivity tracking of engineers. And this is why I don't think you can be a good manager of tech unless you've been in the industry for a long time and or been a tech person, because the person that spends a week and finds a one line of code that was a really hard threading issue might have been just as productive as the person that added 2 new features in the same amount of time. Like it's a different difficulty of problem. And so managing productivity is really hard. I think actually metrics are a bad way of doing it, or at least the metrics that we have at this moment. I almost think that, yeah, and this is where managers, this is where I want my managers to be involved in the team. I found that if you have a good software engineering manager, they know more than anybody. And you don't need metrics. I don't get any metrics, and I can tell you who works hard and who is productive and who is floundering. Now, maybe you need to have a few more engineering managers per capita, per number of people. That is not that shouldn't be a big deal. And then, yeah, your software engineering managers should actually really be your 10x engineers. Those should be the engineers who, in a team, just bring the productivity level up. That's what it should be. Anyways, yeah, I was happy to see Microsoft come out and state this. Now, it's also terrifying that they have the ability to do this. Why do you have a tool that that can monitor keystrokes? This is a security issue, I believe. Keystrokes and mouse clicks, your passwords, this is just bad. You shouldn't have this on your computer anyways. I'm sorry. That's your first mistake. This was a live stream was hit by a worldwide outage. That's okay. YouTube live stream is notoriously bad. Like, it doesn't even tell me that people are watching. It says that I currently have 0 viewers and people chatting in the chat, which is super helpful. I think like they're set up for like hundreds of viewers, and so it's supposed to be like wrong, and that's okay. But then when you have low number of viewers, it gets hurtful. You're like, 0 viewers, really? Ouch. Ouch. All right. And then Mozilla, I don't know, claims Apple, Google, and Microsoft force users to use default web browsers. They don't force, but it's not as easy to use Firefox as it should be, probably. Now I use Linux, so I'm not sure that I feel their pain. I use Firefox on my Mac. It's not that bad. I don't know. I just use Firefox. I don't know. I don't think it's that bad. But then again, what I find as not that bad and what the rest of the world finds as not that bad is two different things. Because I know, like, when I help my mother, installing Firefox would be difficult for her. And setting it as her default browser would be difficult for her. But, I'd love to see hacks attacking those tracking software products. I don't know. Is it just me who thinks that could be a security vulnerability? Like, if you're tracking keystrokes, you're tracking their passwords, you're tracking, I mean, like, that's a classic keystroke logger. I don't know. That's like my knee-jerk reaction is, if I was in charge of a company like that, that would be my thing, is we don't track keystrokes. There's no way for a manager to know how tippy-typey you have been. And, like, it's the stupidest metric anyways. You could be typing on Hangouts or on your blog, like on a text editor, or these are engineers. If they know it, they're going to create something that just register keystrokes every once in a while, random ones that don't actually output characters. My goodness, my productivity would be through the roof. Yeah, anyways. For me, even if there's not a known exploit, why collect it? It's garbage data anyways. And the only thing that could be done with it is for a manager to learn your password and to attack the system using as a different user. It's just a lose-lose. It's a lose-lose. Visual Studio was the best IDE. JetBrains took over, though. Oh, you really think JetBrains took over? I haven't compared the two recently. I know JetBrains is just as slow as Visual Studio was. I tried Goland, like their Go IDE. I didn't really like it. It was pretty like, so for me, I compared Goland to Visual Studio Code for Go, and I found it large and clunky, and its debugging tools weren't really that great as far as I found. Its test framework was a little bit better. That was true. Maybe I just didn't know it well enough, though. That's a possibility that I, like, to really leverage it, I need to know it better. The same is with Visual Studio. Like, Visual Studio is this massive thing. If you just use it in its bare base, like, it's a whole tool to learn yourself. So that's probably what was for me. JetBrains Writer. Okay. I haven't used it. I'll have to give it a try. I'll have to do a video comparing my favorite IDEs. That won't be biased. Notepad++. There we go. All right. Well, anyways, everyone, thanks everyone for joining. It was a pleasure, and I look forward to seeing you guys next Monday. Thanks for joining me. I hope that you all have a fantastic weekend or week. I hope you had a fantastic weekend and have a fantastic week. Yeah, okay, so that's my experience. I tried Sea Lion for Rust and it sucked compared to Visual Studio Code, and Goland was fine, but it just wasn't anything that I would have gotten excited about. Like I just didn't want to pay $100 a month or a year for their Go support. So maybe that was mine. Is they have a bunch of IDEs and I picked the wrong one. So, anyways, have yourselves a fantastic week.